Alright, and then I say hello and welcome back to another episode of TENSHI. Last episode we were kissing with Q, and this episode I don't know what's going to happen. At least Rose woke up, so we will see. It didn't take long for them to shoot open. Her body going from the laying position on to the floor to full on sitting, her balance wobbling back and forth as she realized what was still attached to her chest. Oh, for Rose, you're awake. Yeah, and apparently I've still got a couple of blimps attached to my front. Where on earth are we, Q? Context lab? Kenji, you should probably explain a bit. Yeah, you're right. I went on to explain what I had said to Q, filling Rose in on every detail of context plan as well as Q and I's activities since she had regained her consciousness. Well, obviously not all of our activities, but at least our discussion before that. I see. She took a moment to soak in the information, her hands wiggling in their restraints. Here, let me help you with that. After a bit of struggle, she was freed from her bindings. She rubbed her wrists before standing, wobbling slightly over before gaining her center of gravity. These are just ridiculous. She reached back onto her backside and let out a cute eep. Okay, that is also definitely not okay. Are we stuck like this or something, Q? I don't believe so, Rose. This is most logical explanation is that we aren't yet back in our original time again, so our bodies aren't gonna be back to normal yet. But you know what that means, don't you? Kenji gets a lot more to stare at when he thinks you're not looking. Hey. No. Well, yes, but more importantly, the longer we're here, the bigger they get, and the more likely we are to keep it. Oh yeah, that's bad, isn't it? Yes, it is very bad, Q. I'd like to be able to fit into my clothes when we get back home. Thank you very much. I'm sure Kenji would love to argue with that. This only flustered Rose further. What's that supposed to mean, Q? I'm giving you a hard time, that's what it means, silly. She stuck out her tongue and wandered the dark room. I wonder why they keep it so dark in here anyways. To save power, of course. The muted voice of Mizuki caused all three of us to turn our heads. She stood at the center and had somehow snaked her way into the room unheard, wearing her casual attire. Electricity isn't as plentiful as it is in your time. We save as much of it as we can so we can power the time window. We're very sparing with our jumps, and luckily we get a bit of help. You did this to us, did I? I may have brought you back here, but who sent you in the first place? Well, Michelle did, but she's only did it because we asked. You're both more naive than I gave you credit for. You honestly haven't pieced it together yet. quit talking in riddles? What do you plan on doing with us, with Kenji? Something that we've been planning ever since you met him. Possibly before that. If time is seen the way I see it. How you see it. What is that supposed to mean? Should I really speak about this now, Rose? Are you actually concerned about my theories on life and time? I can't do much else right now, other than hear you blather about nonsense, so be my guest. And I appreciate the vote of confidence, Your Highness. She crossed her arms, obviously getting impatient with Rose's attitude. Look, we really don't want any trouble. Please, just let us go. We know what you're trying to do, and I can't say that I view you as much as bad people anymore. The fact that you did it in the first place is already enough to irk me. Look, we didn't know. Messing with time itself shouldn't really be something that we do. And why is that? The idea of time travel was apparently invented eons ago. And you shared it with no one. So it lay dead on this basement for hundreds of years, until Bunny and I dug it from its grave. Instead of making a difference and changing the world for a better you and TENSHI all sat on your hands and let everything pass you by. And look at what that did for us. Are you saying this is all our fault? Purposefully? No. There was no way you could know that things would end up this way. But your quadis was the problem. You're calling us cowards for not wanting to tamper with the laws of time and space, excuses for not wanting to tear reality apart. And that is what the problem lies. You all think time is like some fragile china plate spinning on a stick, no destination, and if it were even nudged, it would all come crashing down. What you need to understand is our theory that time is a river and it will continue down its own path despite our actions. But we can change the stream we follow into. Bunny and I, we just wanted to escape from this reality. We know there truly isn't anything that can be done about this timeline. But if we can see a different one and live within it, then that is what we shall do. But you haven't confirmed whether your theory is correct either, have you? No, but that will change very soon. The three of us looked up to hear a familiar voice. Through the shadows, a curvy figure walked out towards us. That was when we realized who it was. No way. It can't be. Michelle! Congratulations, girls. You finally pieced it together. Why you didn't do it earlier is beyond my comprehension. But we're back with TENSHI, who's operating at the time window. I always am. I was operating it for Bunny and Mizuki as well. The whole time? Well, admittedly no. It all started a few weeks ago when I received a distress beacon through the time window interface. I decoded it and discovered it to be coming from an unknown period of time in the distant future. After a while we communicated back and forth and I sent the message on how to repair the time window. But Michelle, how were you sure that it wasn't some sort of trap from the government? I know how to read the machine that I built, Q. I knew that this was the very same distress beacon which I had integrated into its system, just in case something fell apart and we got trapped or lost in a time we couldn't escape from. When I realized the distress beacon was coming from the future, I knew there was something wrong. The fact that they had to rebuild it means, well, I don't know yet. This is complete and utter ridiculousness. Michelle, you know the whole time about these guys' plans. Why didn't you tell us? I told TENSHI. I told him as soon as I discovered what was going on. He was furious with me. He thought I had just revealed his life work to a bunch of no good hackers. I tried to explain it to him, but for some reason he couldn't wrap his brilliant mind around the idea of people other than him having control over time. At the moment I thought he was controlling. Insane, even arrogant, but I think he was just afraid. I knew he kept his invention out of government's hands so that they wouldn't abuse the power of the time window. So the idea that others had their hands on it, that struck more fear than hope within him. He thought it would become a trend, that people would come back and try to take away his work. He was foolish, but I understood his reasons. It doesn't make him any less of an idiot, however. Don't you dare to talk about my grandfather that way. Michelle hesitated for a moment, stepping towards me slowly with an accusing eye. And by the way, her boobs grow as well when she does time travel. Can you see those monsters? Kenji, do you actually know what kind of person your grandfather is? How much time have you spent with him since he brought you to the lab? 10 minutes? 15? You've been around the other girls more than you have ever been around him. And that was the main reason he brought you there, to help you feel as if you belong, despite how alien your surroundings were. But I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you anything sooner, Kenji, but I'm afraid it wasn't part of the plan. What plan, Michelle? What are you trying to use kanji for? And why kanji? It's complicated, but I'll do my best to explain. I suppose I should start from the beginning. Come now, to the old entertainment center, more briefing room in there. She gestured to us as well, and we all willingly followed, still reeling from the revelation. Now that I've thought about it, it was actually quite obvious. The muttering, her being the main one to control everything about the time window, it all made sense, really. But still, the fact that she was working for both sides, whose side did she favor more anyway? The entertainment room had seen better days, but there was still enough room for us all to sit. It was nice that we were being treated more like guests than captives. Michelle waited a moment before beginning her explanation. So, after I told Gramps about Mizuki and Bunny, and after he flipped his lid about it, he kept a close eye on the machine from then on out. He wanted to track the hackers at all costs, putting most of his time and effort into keeping his machine away from prying eyes. It seemed like he upped security every day and he got very paranoid. He mellowed out just a bit after, but I could tell he still has his eye on me. I had to sneak into the lab at night and relay all sorts of information to the other end. I still had no idea who was communicating with me, but I knew they needed help. Their messages came in and scrambled and rushed, but as the time window was gradually fixed, I was able to communicate with them more clearly. Thank goodness too, we were in desperate need of instruction. We were about to give up until we got your messages. Ah, Bunny, when did you arrive? Oh, wait, now that we know it. Bunny said she was showering with the commander, so Michelle is the commander. So that means that Michelle and Bunny basically had fun together. Can you imagine that? Michelle and Bunny. Michelle that wanted to rape us and said, oh, you are so... and don't touch them. Was actually playing with Rose? No, with Rose. With Bunny? I mean, that's interesting. Huh. Well then, anyways. I looked to my side. Rose was still looking up at Michelle with a hurt gaze. I could tell how betrayed she felt just by looking at her, but at the same time, there was a glimmer of worry. It was then that she glanced back down at her chest, likely checking to see if it was still swelling while we were trapped in a future time. Hey, it's gonna be okay. I whispered this to her and took her hand, gently squeezing it in a reassuring manner. She looked over at me and gave me a weak smile, nodding while doing her best to keep from tearing up. All of those things had been happening so quickly for her, it was obvious that she was deeply terrified, but she was doing her best to keep a brave face while it all happened. Where was I? Ah, yes, the messages. Day by day, each communication became clearer and calmer. I could tell that the words at the other end were beginning to show faith in what I was saying. I knew I couldn't bring them back here forever, to help them escape their plight. Due to the effects of the time window, doing so would overload their endocrine systems and could potentially kill them if they tried living here for more than a year. So I decided to help them, to give them an opportunity to change the future. Even though TENSHI warned us not to tamper with anything in the past, Graham's ideals and theories were old and based heavily on his own bias and superstition. He had never experimented with other hypotheses, namely that possibly changing the future wouldn't destroy everything. You don't sound absolutely sure yourself, Michelle. We haven't tested the idea yet, trust me. We wanted to, but we were unsure whether anything we did actually had any bearing on the future. So we decided to work on an idea, a paradox. We began drafting up a concept, and after some study and further workings, we knew what we had to do. Something that seemed insignificant, but it would affect all of us in one way or another. And what would that be? Michelle smiled, divilishing, and stepped towards me. I wasn't used to her new outfit, but since she was in a different time, she had her own time suit and everything. Needless to say, it was just as revealing and durable as the others. And what Michelle has to say is something you will find out in the next episode. So if you don't want to miss it, click on the subscribe button and tune in tomorrow again. And if you liked it, just leave a thumbs up, leave a commentary, and then I'll see you tomorrow, your pacemaker.